Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, boys and girls watching, welcome to another wonderful show of Inspirate, the show that is out here to inspire you, to motivate you, to empower you, to provide hope to those that are in pain, to provide an inspiration to those that may be in a state of darkness. Today we have a show on entrepreneurship, but importantly, entrepreneurship in the 21st century. As we know, right from 1400 years ago, as espoused to us by the greatest man that walked this earth, the Prophet, peace be upon him, trade and business was a critical component, a component that is so important for our well-being. There are numerous hadiths around business and trade. Entrepreneurship is the core of our lives. We spend most of our life in the working environment. How is entrepreneurship relevant? And how do we take the opportunities from a business perspective in the 21st century? That is our topic. Welcome, panelists. Alfred, how do you see entrepreneurship in the 21st century and its relevancy? So,
in my opinion, entrepreneurship right now, we're sitting at the precipice. We at a stage where we, the global community, have to find solutions to problems that are real. So if you look at Africa as an example, we've got a lot of resources, and that has been driving investment in Africa. Yeah? Entrepreneurship means, for me, taking new solutions to problems globally that we might not be aware of. So to give you an example, yeah, digitization. Yeah? So if you think about digitization and how we give life to digitization, entrepreneurs will be starting to create jobs in rural communities that today do not see the job. Yeah. So today we're thinking, you know, when we prepare our kids for education, we prepare them to be employed. Yeah. Entrepreneurship means that we have to prepare our children to become the employer. Yeah. And to become an employer, you must look at different solutions to problems that are real. Yeah? So energy is another example. So one is digitization, the other one is energy. Yeah? So a lot of people are telling us that, you know, it is very difficult to deliver energy to communities. So if you look at the traditional model to deliver energy, it has been power stations in centralized locations delivering energy to a variety of communities. The new entrepreneur would be saying, how do I deliver energy to their community as close as possible to their community? In other words, delivering energy as close as possible to the consumption point to enable efficiency. That is not an employer and an employed thinking. That is an entrepreneur thinking. So the digitization and energy are just two examples where we have got opportunities to grow new entrepreneurs.
Aren't we living in the most exciting times? I mean, you're talking of two key components of our industry, yeah, of the world. Yeah. And you're saying understanding the problem and coming up with innovative ways on how to deal with the problem. And that's where entrepreneurship comes in such a key component. Mubin?
I think to add to what Alfred's saying, you can look at tech and disruption. When there's autonomous cars coming. So you don't want to be caught, selling, normal everyday cars, because by 2030 they're forecasting that they only want to have autonomous cars on the road. You've got disruption in every sector of the market. And and the disruptor is actually the 21st century entrepreneur. So you've got a company that's been in business for 40 years, and you get one 16-year-old that comes up with a great idea and actually unseats that company. And that's why Steve Jobs used to always get young people to come and try to break the ideas of what they were doing or break the products that they were creating, because they knew that these people or these kids have a new way of thinking. So So the 21st century entrepreneur is actually the future of business. Everything great that you're seeing today and all the billionaires that are created, it's the 21st century entrepreneur. It's not something that you start today with the business and it's going to take you 40 years. You can create something in the tech world and it can get scale within a few years, maybe even a year. And you could be global and you could have 1 billion people using your program. And we use a lot of these programs every day, whether it's a Facebook or a Uber or whatever it is. So we need to be thinking more along the lines of what are the problems and what are the innovative solutions. And that's where the disruption occurs.
Well, that's, again, opportunity. And what I'm hearing you guys talk about is opportunity. Where there's a challenge, there's opportunity. And it's about, again, thinking outside the box. That's, I guess, what's the crux of an entrepreneur, right? Is to be able to think outside the box in terms of dealing with the solution. But I guess it's also very scary. Mubin makes a very good point. It's a scary space for those that have been in existence for so many years. The disruption. To think that an 18-year-old can disrupt my entire business that has been built for over 20, 30 years. In your experience, and I know, Mohammed, you're very much involved in the corporate world, how would you react to that? I mean, here's Mubin coming as a youngster and a disruptor. Alfred is talking of key opportunities from challenges that we face in our continent, in the world. How would somebody that's operating big business react to this disruption and become relevant?
I mean, this is a very important thing, and I want to preface it by saying, you know, corporates were built in an era when people had jobs for life. So your parents and a lot of our parents would have said, no, you must get a job, be stable, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was frowned upon if you moved from a job, if you didn't work somewhere for 20 years. The millennials we're dealing with, not just as consumers of the products we're talking about, but also as the people who work in these environments, are quite comfortable moving around, are quite comfortable trying different things. That creates a whole different culture of the globe. So if you're thinking, even as a corporate, in the old mold, you recognize that actually it isn't going to work for two reasons. One, who you're going to sell to is not you, and who you're going to employ is not you. So how corporates are having to deal with this is to deal with this unstructured world, this decentralized world, by decentralizing themselves. In many instances, that's not happening, and those are the ones being disrupted. Where corporates realize this is happening, I mean, I've seen it in our business as well, they're actually going to look for entrepreneurs to partner with them. So it's not mutually exclusive necessarily. In fact, you could go to a corporate for funding. So your earlier point is very valid. The opportunity where you thought there was a challenge, someone could be a potentially huge competitor, you could potentially partner with them and be an entrepreneur and get the action. So it's very important, and I heard, you know, the words digitization, energy, you know, we're so used to seeing tech billionaires that those of us that are not potentially developers or tech savvy might think, I can't do this. But entrepreneurship is in anything. You know, you can create an opportunity out of something that's quite simple. And we see that happening in Africa all the time. So these things should inspire us. A lot of the big corporations we've seen, you know, were started off with, you know, in the 80s, 10,000 Rand. You know, you say that to someone today, they say, but 10,000 Rand was a lot then. Yeah, wasn't that much. You know, whatever you can pick up today, you can do a lot with. So the opportunity is you can be a disruptor because the consumer or the customer of your product is the disruptor themselves of regular thinking. It's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be in business. And it's actually a great time to be a small business because you don't have to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, you bring in a very good point on money. And I want us to discuss capital, because I do believe that a lot of people watching, myself included, having started as an entrepreneur a while back, is capital a deterrent to becoming an entrepreneur? So let's get into that in the next segment after the break.
Time is now. Time is now.
Welcome back to the show Entrepreneurship in the 21st Century. It's very exciting. We're hearing from our panelists that never before have we lived in a time when entrepreneurship has been as exciting as it is now. We heard about opportunities with digitalization, with meeting challenges through decentralization in terms of energy. We talked about money and how today, with very little capital, one can create a very successful business. On that score, and this is something that I believe a lot of people, it acts as a deterrent to them. Is money a deterrent to being successful? There's this view that you need money to make money. Mubin?
I don't think in the 21st century, if in conventional businesses, yeah, if you want to open a laundromat, then you're going to need money to purchase equipment. But as Mohammed's saying, everything's decentralized now. We grew up with this paradigm that money doesn't grow on trees. And that innately made us believe that you're going to have to work a long time and get money or borrow money and that type of thing. But with the decentralized economy that the technology has created, you could actually crowdfund your business. You know, be selling product that's not in your warehouse, using an online platform, and you know, none of this really requires that much of money. You know, so one is you're crowdfunding if you wait for the money you need. For the you don't carry the inventory, so that the manufacturer is carrying the inventory. You're actually performing a service, and there's a courier dropping the product off. If it was that type of business, if it was, I mean, an e-book or something that could be, you know, executed online, that's even easier. So if you're doing conventional business, yes, money can sometimes be a deterrent, but with the 21st century style of business, you can crowdfund and raise. I mean, Uber just goes on funding rounds, and they raise and raise, next round and next round, and that's what eventually happened. They built up the capital they required to market and develop the program that they needed.
Look, that's a very good point, but I also want to bring it down into the South Africa and African context. I know Uber, and this is the question I want to pose to you, Alfred, right? Are we mature enough? This is the question I'm asking. Are we mature enough in our economy? When you look at Uber, if Uber was an idea that was brought up in South Africa or in any part of Africa, in Kenya, who's quite leading in terms of technologies, would they have gotten the funding that they would have on an idea if they were based in Kenya, in comparison to maybe the West Coast of America where it's different? Alfred?
Yeah, I've got a view that money follows good ideas. Yeah, so if an idea is good enough, yeah, to address a particular need or provide a solution, money will follow it. Yeah. The challenge for me is that the entrepreneurs need to see the possibility, yeah, to be patient, yeah, and to be passionate. Yeah. So if you don't see the possibility, if you're not patient, if you're not passionate, money does not follow those who are not passionate, who do not see the possibility. And that possibility comes from, there's a market opportunity out there. So let's use digitization as an example. Yeah? So in digitization, you know, we are already sitting in a space where assets are being managed remotely. Yeah? So in other words, I could be sitting in Kenya and controlling building solution or building management in New York. Yeah? The question is, how does that idea get born? Yeah? And how does that idea deliver a solution to whoever's got the money? Yeah? And without passion, without demonstrating the possibility, and without the drive, money does not go to where there is no passion. Yeah? So it is the ability of the entrepreneur to attract money to make the solution bankable. Yeah? If we don't have that, there's no entrepreneurship.
Mohammed, I know from your private equity expertise, you must be facing this on a regular basis.
So I think one of the things that I think particularly people in this country need to change their paradigm and their thinking around is that if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to own 100% of your business. If it's a great idea, and this is the world we live in, it's a world of partnership. So I think people have this mentality, which is old business, which is I must own 100% of my business. And when they talk of capital, they're almost thinking of a bank. The bank is a very small part of where you can get capital these days. However, your mindset needs to be different. You need to say, I'm going to make a big cake. I'll have a smaller cut of the cake, but that allows me to have a bigger cake. As opposed to, I want to have this cake all for myself, who's going to give me money? That thinking is what makes people feel that nobody's going to give me capital. The crowdfunding is one example. You know, a lot of the West Coast startups that we talk about, they go on funding rounds where you give away percentages of your business. The important thing is be confident about your idea and passionate that it's big enough. That's very important. Do you believe your idea is big enough that anyone's prepared to put money behind it? Secondly, are you prepared to put your energy behind it? And I think the single biggest problem in picking up capital as well is patience. You know, someone asked me the other day in our business, which is actually we manage listed investments, you know, what's the biggest advice you'd give to anybody in terms of starting up a business? And I said, the biggest barrier to entry is time, and patience is required. Time, you know, sometimes people, it kicks in a month or two. Sometimes it takes a bit longer. The persistence to go on with patience with your idea is what lets others believe in your idea. So if you go around and you've had 10 different things that you've tried and you say, no, I couldn't get capital, but here's the 11th one, will you put money with me? Would you give someone like that money? In other words, you don't believe in your own idea. But if you've been persistent with your idea, the holders of capital buy into that. And again, the earlier point of it's so decentralized, it's no longer just a bank that you need to go to. There's people in the community with money, you can go and crowdfund there as well. The important thing is to think. Create the ideas, think through them properly, and have the patience to execute on them. That's what gets the capital. Capital isn't just about having, you know, this big corporation behind you. In fact, these days you don't need that.
Yeah, look, we're talking now entrepreneurship, we're talking on how to raise money, we're talking of actually, more importantly, of how to change the mindset. And I think that is what is coming out strongly, is that you need to have that passion, you need to have that persistence with your idea. And even once you have the approval for funding, this is the other point you also made, which is to be able to look outside your norms that you've been told. So banks actually probably may be the last of the list on the list. They always normally come in because of being risk averse at a later part of the business value chain. So in terms of that, let's delve a little deeper into somebody out there. Our viewers are watching the show and they want to know if they have a great idea, where can they go and access all of this? Who can they get assistance from? Or there's somebody out there that is sitting with a lot of money, with looking at innovative ways of taking their businesses to a new, how can they do this? They want to be partnering with some young innovation. And let's get to how that can happen in the next segment, after the break.
Time is now. Time is now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're talking entrepreneurship in the 21st century. There's been some lovely pearls of wisdom shared by our panelists. We spoke about change of mindset, being passionate, being persistent, looking at different avenues of raising capital. We spoke about innovation. Now, what's important is, and we were just alluding to that in the last segment, and I want us to go into the depths of it. So there's two parts here. There's one of somebody that has the idea, that is trying to raise capital. Where can they go to raise capital? How can they raise capital? There's also somebody out there that's sitting with ways that they can spur this economy. Because one of the biggest challenges we have is that we're actually at a very low growth and as a country. How do we spur this economy? Is entrepreneurship a key contributor to spurring this economy? Mubin?
We spoke of crowdfunding in the previous segment. So to get a feel for it, you could go to like a Kickstarter.com. But South Africa has a number of their own crowdfunding websites. So if you've got a really good idea, as Alfred said earlier, and if you believe in your idea and you back it, there's probably going to be somebody that would want to put money in there. And like that, you'd give away some equity and that type of thing, and you'd develop the capital that you're looking for. But further to that, you can go around the community, and you may find people that are more financially stable than others. Take an idea to them. And again, if it's a good idea, people want to back great ideas, because there is the next Facebook or the next Google that will be born in whichever segment of the IT world. But you need to get that idea to somebody who has the money, because you're not going to spend 10 years developing capital, and I mean the idea will be irrelevant at that point. So you need to hit it fast. Get the idea, get the capital, get to market.
So the beauty of what you're saying is in what Alfred was saying earlier is that have the passion for the idea, believe in the idea, and now with crowdfunding and with digitization and globalization, you can go to one to many investors that are able to buy into your idea. Is that what we say?
Correct. And if you develop it a little bit further, when it has the market presence, then you go on funding rounds.
Correct.
Right? And there may be some bigger private equity company in the States may put in money, and that's how companies have catapulted to great success.
And the point that Mohammed you were making was that it's about sharing.
Yeah, I think there's an additional thing. The other way to think about this is, let's say you're talking about a food app. So, apply your mind. It's not just about finding funders, as in someone who's got capital. If you're talking about a food app or something along those lines, is someone involved in the food industry who is an entrepreneur themselves in the food industry who this might appeal to? Think about going to them and saying, I have this idea, would you like to partner with me? We can expand your business. You got to think out of the box. I feel a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs in South Africa, they think wonderfully about the idea, and then that's where it stops. But you got to think out of the box on funding. You got to think out of the box on partnering. That's how all of these ideas in the US work out, is because you start saying, actually, this person could be a user of my product. This person could be a vendor of a product into my whatever I'm trying to do. Let me see if they're interested. So the funding isn't just the regular, firstly, not the banks, firstly, not just the banks. Crowdfunding is one opportunity, but also people within that industry that you're looking at. But very importantly, you can't just be selfish about it. I've got this great idea. I'm not going to tell you anything. Are you interested or not? You've got to take that risk. That risk that maybe someone could steal the idea, hopefully not, but cover yourself legally, do what you need to do. But if the idea is in your head because you don't want to tell anyone, because someone mustn't steal your idea, it will stay in your head. You've got to take that idea out there. If someone steals it, cover yourself. If you're smart enough, they won't do that. You know what to keep back and what to say. But the important thing here is sharing. And I really want to use that word, because there is this mentality of my idea, my money, my capital. None of the big things we've seen actually have grown that way. And I'll talk to the providers of capital as well. You sometimes go to those people, and particularly if they're individuals, they'll say, it's my capital, I want 80% of it. That's not how business works. That's not how the new world works. You actually have to accept that this is a partnership. And partnership means we both get something out of it. It's not that I'm going to get you to work for me. It was an experience I had and we had when we started our business, where if you went to people, the attitude was, look, you know what? We went to the Middle East and the attitude was, great idea, work for me. They don't seem to understand that that's not what you want to do. Had you said, partner with me, we're both the better off. And I think that mindset change on both sides is very important.
Yeah, that's also very important from those that are sitting on the side of big business, or somebody that is sitting with a lot of capital, that may have had a business for many years in a waning industry, right? So let's look at the different scenario. And here we're talking of somebody that has innovative, new concepts. And how do you marry that? So when in corporate or a large business, somebody comes and says, okay, I have this great idea, and I'm able to provide the service to you. The issues also that I guess practically is faced is that, does big business take that risk in terms of working with a startup? And how do we deal with that as well?
So I would give it a different perspective. So maybe let me just touch on the crowdfunding that was mentioned earlier. So I want to make it very practical. Today we are sitting in many townships and rural communities with individuals that are contributing money into a pot. normally that contribution is meant to enable them to buy groceries at the end of the year. Yeah? So that's a source of funding. Yeah? What is happening is that the money ends up sitting in a bank, and the owners of the money do not have the capability to match their contribution and make that available to idea owners, which you call now entrepreneurs. Yeah? So those many billions of rands or dollars that have been contributed into these community funds, yeah, are not being managed in a way that enables the community to benefit from that contribution. Yeah? So if you're looking for money, yeah, you need to understand, firstly, the idea must be real. It must address a real possibility or solution. It must talk to a real solution. But also understand, what do I need to do to enable a big corporate, yeah, who are big because they started small as well, yeah, to enable that community. So the banks, I think the banks is a bit, for me, it's an outlier, yeah, to enable the community to invest in that idea. So that same community that is crowd contributing to a fund, that fund could become a source of cash to enable an idea owner in that community to benefit. You know, we've got communities that are putting money and there's no entrepreneurship at all.
Correct.
Yeah, but the money is sitting somewhere. Yeah, so that's I think the gap for me is the inability of entrepreneurs to understand how to unlock the cash.
Correct.
And unlocking the cash means understanding the requirements of the funder. Even a passive cash holder, like the people that I'm talking about with the stock files. Yeah?
Yeah.
So they're sitting with the money and they don't really know, or they've got no aspiration to grow it at IRR of 15% or whatever so all they want is a savings mechanism that enables them to access the money after 12 months or 36 months, whatever their criteria is. Once you understand the mindset of the funder, as an entrepreneur, you can enable your product to access the funder and enable the funder to give hope in your idea, because money really enables that idea to grow, and it gives you hope. Yeah, it enables you to, as an entrepreneur, to say, yeah, I've now got the money, because money does not deliver the entrepreneur's idea.
Correct.
It enables the idea to be delivered. And I think that's as entrepreneurs, what we need to be thinking about is, once I understand the product, the solution, etc., and I understand how this will change the lives of people in the 21st century, I need to turn around to say, over and above the money, what type of, so one is, what type of people do I need in my business? Who do I employ? Why do I employ them? What type of funder do I require in my business? Why do I want that funder? And how does, talking about partnership, why is that partnership working for me? So, you know, and that's for me is a new way to think about how to attract money.
Yeah. If I can add one more point to that on the corporate side, is people are afraid of corporates, like these big places you don't go to because they'll shoot you down. The world has changed. Entrepreneurs sit with the ideas, corporates sit with distribution channels, cash, etc. The important thing to bear in mind is corporates are interested if the idea is good enough. And if you can, if you want to call it, bulletproof your idea with a corporate, it will work anyway. So if you're afraid that a corporate will shoot it down, then maybe it's not such a good idea. So you've got to be confident and passionate that your idea is going to work. And you go into that meeting or discussion or whatever it is with the corporate saying, I have something to offer you. If I have something to offer you, I'm confident that it's going to do something for you. So what does that mean? You must think through your idea very clearly. Exactly what Alfred's saying. Think through your mechanisms of how you will enable it. And let the corporate or whoever it is, this big thing, they understand that if you don't do it, someone else will. It's that confidence of understanding. Again, it's a mindset and a paradigm shift. If you're thinking small, you're going to do small. If you're thinking big, you're going to do big. So the moment you prepare to speak to a corporate, by definition, your idea is big. You don't have to speak to a corporate, by the way. That's just one example. But you can take the crowdfunding example and take that. But even there, you have to sell your idea to people whose cash it is. They don't want to lose the money. It's not a free ride. So you have to check your idea.
That's very powerful. I think the point that's made, and I think this is an exciting, which we're saying as well, is an exciting time to be in entrepreneurship, is don't be scared. Don't be scared. If you have the idea and you believe in the idea, there is no reason to be scared of the big bad wolf, because there is no big bad wolf.
Right.
They actually are more in need of your great ideas.
There is a wolf in your head.
Exactly, that's it. It's all about getting out of your own way.
Right.
After the break, we'll get down to the last segment, where let's take it down into practical levels. Let's take it down into what I, as an entrepreneur, what I, as a big business, can do to actually contribute positively to this economy.
Time is now. Time is now.
Welcome back. This is our last segment on the show, Entrepreneurship in the 21st Century. A very exciting time to live in. We've gathered from our panelists. As an entrepreneur, it's about dealing with the challenges, understanding what the problems are of the day, and being innovative enough, persistent enough, passionate enough to be able to find that innovative solution that we're faced with. Now, coming back to where we are, the individual that's sitting out there in his little community. You spoke about the Stockvelds in our communities. We look at the successes of community development has been through entrepreneurship and the cycle of money in a positive way. Traditional communities. How do we contribute toward the betterment of our communities? There is a reality. The reality is there's a large gap between the rich and poor. There's a poverty issue across the globe. If entrepreneurship, as you guys are putting it, is such a key contributor, you're saying there's digitalization, there's a global economy, there's never been a more exciting time to live in. How do we practically contribute toward this growth and this success?
So I think the most important thing is know where you are and be local. You can think global, be local. And why I'm saying that is because we all see the Ubers and we see Facebook, and these are very exciting examples to look up to. But a lot of those things often are not the immediate needs of the country that we live in. Like you've mentioned, there's some very real needs, and those are opportunities as well as challenges. So the entrepreneur sees opportunities where others see challenges. So for example, part of what you have to think about is employment. You have this large numbers of people in this country that are unemployed. We are lucky in that is available and it's relatively cheaper than many other parts of the world. How do you use that? That person is eventually going to become a consumer of your product. What's important culturally, which is different in many other parts of the world, which actually creates a barrier to entry for yourself. It's actually great for a business. So how do I sell something to this community which needs something immediately? Many things come to mind. In this country, you have a high crime rate. How do you make things something convenient to be delivered to someone efficiently, effectively, and safely? Those are the kind of thoughts you have to think about. So how do I get plugged in to the immediate community? Look for the challenges, and how do I sort those challenges out? The single biggest differentiator between people who had ideas and people who actually carried them out, like a Steve Jobs, is they actually said, what do people need, or what do they need that they don't know they need yet? And how can I fill that need? And that's something we need to think about on a very, very personal level, even in your own community. Is there something missing? And it doesn't have to be technology heavy if that's not what you are. The other thing as well is that there's always people out there with money. People have always collaborated in shops and wholesales, and there've been those partnerships. It's just our thinking needs to evolve that if I don't see stock, it doesn't mean the business doesn't exist. That's where entrepreneurs need to go.
Well, what you made that point of what they don't need as well as what they need. Yes. Because now as an entrepreneur, you're creating the demand.
Correct.
For something that I didn't even think I had a problem for.
Right.
Alfred?
So I think, you're talking about the demand as entrepreneurs, we need to understand the conversion of an idea to a product and what path that needs to follow to enable your idea to become a product. And that product has to be understood within the context of the buyer, because I mean, eventually business is about, you know, producing something that somebody else can buy. Yeah? Understanding the needs of that buyer, understanding the needs of your suppliers, including the funders. Yeah? Understanding how that ecosystem works to promote the idea. Yeah? And I think, you know, you're talking about practical tools that we need to enable this. You know, one practical tool is you need to learn from the no's. When somebody says no, understand why. Yeah? Understand how you now going to take that no and convert it into a yes. If you can't do that, then you can't define yourself as an entrepreneur. Yeah? Because entrepreneurship is about the ability to say, yes, I'm passionate about this idea. I know the possibility it creates, but I also need to understand the solutions I must offer to the people who are providing me with the no's. And the no's are actually meant to build on that idea. No, I cannot fund you. Understand why I can't fund you. Because if you don't have that understanding, it will be 10 or 100 no's, and the idea will die its natural death. Yeah? And if entrepreneurs can't take that no and turn it into a yes, then, you know, the ideas will not progress. You know, most of corporates that have grown to become big corporates have experienced lots of no's. It is the capability to turn that no into a yes. And if that is not understood, it's a problem.
So you make a good point. You have an idea, you have that passion, you have that persistence, you get in the no's, you're learning from those no's,
Yes.
you're refining, and you're continuing. You're being persistent. Because if you believe in it, then eventually you may have 100 no's, and there's many stories like that. I mean, there's many stories of 100 no's and eventually really successful businesses.
I think the number of no's you get are relative to the size of the idea, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
If you've got the bigger the idea, I think then you keep going back, until you refine to get to play at that level. For me, I think you just got to have your ear to the ground, understand the market that you're looking at, then be innovative and determined and persistent. And if you've got that, I think it'll be pretty easy to succeed. Just to elaborate on something we spoke of in the last segment, Mohammed spoke of the strategic partner. I sometimes think that you have a young guy that's innovative. He just needs to look at the big business that's moving slow in his area or market or whatever. And if he can disrupt that business, he can collaborate with them and form part of their ecosystem. He piggybacks and immediately he's in a $1 billion organization. He doesn't necessarily have to develop this from the ground. It's just about seeing that opportunity that the big guy didn't see because he may be too big and in his head. Whereas this young disruptor could see an opportunity in the market.
If I can add to that, you know, one of the things that also happens with young entrepreneurs is they have an idea, but it's not sufficiently researched. The knowledge about body of knowledge around what they want to do is not sufficiently researched. It's okay to get the no's once you've done your thinking. You know, once someone spoke to me about a particular idea about an online portal, and I asked them, "Have you ever worked in that industry?" No. "Have you researched how a parcel gets from X to Y?" No. I said, "Well, then how are you going to go to funders and convince them that you know how that happens?" He said, "No, I understand how the technology works." That's fine, but it's not about the technology. You're not delivering a technology. The technology is an enabler. You're delivering something else. So the knowledge is very important and related to what you said as well. Take that knowledge. Once you've honed it, use the no's to further that knowledge and then come with a yes once you've covered all your bases. But very important is we're in an environment and a world now where even that is very easy to get globally. Knowledge is available.
So here we go. We talking entrepreneurship in the 21st century. A lot of pearls of wisdom have been shared. We're saying that we've never lived in a more exciting time. We understanding though it takes a lot to be an entrepreneur. As much as it is very exciting, there are a lot of ideas, but how many opportunities are there? We're saying if you have that idea, as great as it is, share, That's a very good point that came about sharing the idea. Again, being persistent about the idea. Refining the idea while sharing. There may be many no's, and in those no's you get a yes eventually, but you
give you a better integrated set of choices.
and you start thinking much bigger, right, is what you said, thinking much bigger, and so your idea gets refined into a real life opportunity. And interestingly, and this is something that was very importantly brought up, is that there are many avenues where you can partner. It's not just your traditional banks. As much as they may be a source of funding for your ideas, they may be just a partnership. It may be your community that is able to fund you and you benefiting them. It may be a corporate that needs your idea and you marry the two and you get a mentor from your corporate and the corporate gets this young, fresh ideas, some new ideas that come in. So there is this collaboration that must take place. I think the crux of it is a collaborative platform. There's an opportunity here for us to be able to create this collaborative platform, and there are many people that are doing it. And with that, we can really contribute positively to our economy and create that much needed growth that our country requires. With that, we say thank you. And we look forward to you being able to take what you've learned and what has been shared here to a practical implementation in whatever sphere of life you are in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.